Buongiorno, buonasera, benvenuti amici, welcome my friends. My name is Vincenzo and welcome to my channel, and the channel is Fountain Pen Therapy. I'm excited, folks. I'm really excited. For those who are regular viewers to the channel, you know that since the new year, i.e. back in January, and over the last 6 months, we have reviewed a bunch of notebooks almost on a weekly basis, all with the ultimate intention of finding the ultimate alternative to Tomoe River paper, the number 7 machine original TRP, and we'll explain what that is in a second. And so I've got a plan here, folks. We're going to take you through several segments. First, we'll start with some background facts. Secondly, I'm going to try as best as possible to summarize for you why I think Tomoe River paper, or the original Tomoe River paper, is the ultimate paper for fountain pen enthusiasts. Then we're going to take a look at about 40 to 50, I have all in front of me here, notebooks that I've reviewed or presented to you over the last several months. We're going to kind of summarize each one and either declare them as legitimate challengers or discard them, and why. We're then going to take all the challengers, i.e. the finalists, that I think are viable alternatives, and we'll declare a winner. So that's the plan, folks. So without any further ado, it's going to be a long video, time-stamped of course. Fountain Pen Therapy presents the ultimate alternative to Tomoe River paper. Okay, so we're back. I'm just going to give you some background facts, and I've got my script notes here. I'm not going to pretend to have summarized or memorized all the facts that I need to mention to you. What I discovered was that Tomoe Gawa, so the Tomoe Gawa Paper Company, that is behind Tomoe River paper. It started back in 1914. Okay. And the mission was for it to produce, make a long story short, a electrical insulating paper. So it was, in 1914, it successfully produced Japan's first domestic insulating paper for communication and power lines, keeping the nation's rapidly expanding electrical grid running. Don't ask me how you use paper for that. I'm not an engineer, but it's interesting that it started that way. In 1981, it took on a different mission, if you will, which was it developed an expertise in producing ultra-thin, highly dense, and uniform paper fibers to release a lightweight coated commercial printing paper. So the paper was engineered to reduce shipping costs and to make the entire unit much smaller. Okay, and so especially if it required smaller sizes. For example, a Bible, right? You can get that very thin paper. So it started industrial, then it had a commercial use, if you will. It was commercial printing paper. And then is the Obonichi revolution. In the early 2000s, they teamed up with Obonichi, and that's when Obonichi started to produce, or actually used, the 52 GSM paper for notebook purposes. Okay? And that's when we started to get, of course, the Obonichi revolution. Everybody's going crazy every year. They buy their notebooks. Obonichi has all kinds of formats and models. Most of the most important, or their most popular one being, of course, the yearly, weekly agendas, etc., etc. But that's the Obonichi craze, right? Then, of course, what happened was that original number 7 machine at the factory was the one that was producing this beautiful paper, revolutionary paper. And unfortunately, it wasn't profitable, so they stopped using machine number 7, put it out of business, and they used what they called machine number 9. Now, the Tomoe River paper produced by machine number 9, the paper was different. Some of the inks started to feather. There was even some bleeding. It wasn't great. People were not happy with that number 9 Tomoe River paper. And then, of course, what happened was that panic set in. They were going to lose the Tomoe River paper forever. And that's when Sanson came in. And then we have the Sanson era. They bought it, and they started producing it. And I don't know how many varieties of Sanson we have. I think I'm going to divide it in two. It's a Tomoe River S, standing for Sanson, which is kind of a, first generation that didn't work out that well. I know Obonichi was extremely upset at the quality of their Sanson paper for their notebooks, not this year, the year prior, and maybe the year prior before that. And, a lot of the Sanson paper that we received in the last several years was not up to scratch. And we'll take a look at that when we get to review the actual Sanson paper. And then, of course, Sanson sat down with Obonichi, and they have kind of a second generation Sanson, which apparently has worked out really well. And we'll see that when we take a look at the Sanson notebooks. Okay, so that's roughly the history. I don't want to get more complicated than that. It just kind of puts you in the context, and it gets you to appreciate perhaps some of my other segments of this video. Okay, that's it for now. What we're going to do now, of course, is we're going to explain to you, I think, why is it that I'm so fond of Tomoe River paper number 7, and what makes it special and legendary. Stay tuned. Okay, you have before you an Italian notebook cover, and in there is probably one of my prized possessions, which is an original notebook made out of number 7 Tomoe River paper. And number 7 Tomoe River paper, from now on, will be referring to the Tomoe River paper originally produced by the number 7 machine. Okay? And one of the things that, for those of you who don't know anything about Tomoe River paper, is that it is an incredibly light paper. As you could see, very ultra thin, very resilient, however. Okay, it doesn't tear easily. This is a 52 GSM thickness. It also comes under a sturdier size 68 GSM, but we won't look at that. It's the 52 GSM that is my favorite. Makes it such that, because it's so thin, a little bit like a Bible, right? You can fit in hundreds. I mean, this notebook, I think, has over 400 pages. And look how thin it is. Okay. Now, some of you might say, well, you know, it kind of looks like onion paper, you know. I remember we used to use this onion paper in school to do tracing. You know, it's a little bit like the same idea. Of course, this is even sturdier in my view and even more transparent, if you will. But yes, it kind of resembles onion paper, but not quite. And the other fun part is that when you write with it, it has this crinkly sort of feel. It's very soft, and the writing on it, you can almost feel all the ink there. Okay, so the ink kind of sticks to the top, and it kind of crystallizes, and it forms this nice crust, making it such that when you write, there's a crinkly feeling, as opposed to one of these hard, thick papers that you can't feel anything on it. So it's kind of a combination of smooth, feels a little bit coated, but it's not glossy. Okay, it holds ink at the top of the paper. That's why it takes such a long time for the ink to dry. And it flows freely when you write. Okay, and then, but it doesn't feel, when you write, doesn't feel sticky. It doesn't feel grabby, especially with finer and drier nibs. Okay, it doesn't feel like you're writing in mud or clay. It's not mirror-like smoothness, so it's so glossy that, you know, the ink you can hardly feel or see the ink on the paper. So and the feeling is unique. It really is unique. So that's the first part. Then we got to look at ink performance. So what I suggest is that I show you a typical swatch that I've repeated on each of those pretenders, if you will, to show you how I came about my final choice. So let me grab the ink. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is I'm going to do a typical swatch. And I've chosen for the swatch this very sheening ink from a Chinese outfit by the name of Collection Traced. It's a recently purchased ink, and it's got so much sheen there that I think I wanted to use this ink to really depict how the different notebooks bring out that sheen. So we'll do one swatch there. Then what I've done is that I've chosen several pens that I use to test the papers, and I'll tell you what those pens are and why. Okay, here are the pens that I've chosen. First of all, I start with my Epson. The beauty of this Epson is that not only is it a beautiful writer, but it's got a smooth stub nib. So that's the first thing we're going to do, is we're going to test the paper with this one. We'll then go to my Sailor King of Pens, because of course Sailor has that typical noisy nib, or particularly sounding nib, a number 8 size nib, which is very unique. And so we're going to use a Sailor KOP fine nib. After that, we'll follow it with a Scribo fine nib. The fine nib on the Scribo is got a little more tooth. So as opposed to the Sailor, it's less smooth. It's got a little more friction, a little more feedback. So we test it with this fine nib. Then, of course, we need a medium nib. And the medium nib is this nib in this La Fenice Leonardo medium, 18 karat gold medium nib. Very juicy and wet. So that will be the medium. And then I will test it with my Pelikan M1000. That is a gusher. Okay, this is a medium, but it writes like a broad nib. So we'll see, very, very wet, and we'll see how the paper react, or all these different nib books react to that pen. And then we will also test the paper with my Homo sapiens, who has this very fine writing, fine nib, 18 karat, that's kind of an in-between. It's not as toothy as the Scribo. It doesn't make the noise and the chalkiness of the Sailor, but it's also a very smooth, fine nib. So there you have the tools, the inks, and the pens that I've chosen. Now, we could have chosen other things, but those are my choices. Okay? So let's start, and as I go along, I will look at the various categories of parameters that I look at in comparing all the papers. Okay, so let's remove the ink from its plastic box there, and you can see that this is a deeply sheen ink. It makes a mess, but it does the trick for the purposes of this exercise. I have a folded pen for those of you who have not seen me use this, and we do a swatch. Now, first thing we notice is that the swatching is smooth, flowing, there's no resistance, and you can tell the ink pools and stays at the top. That's why it's so smooth. And it's translated by when you're writing, the flow, because the ink stays at the top, and it takes a little while to dry up, you're constantly writing in ink, in flowing wet ink. So that's one of the key characteristics of Tomoe River paper. So while that swatch dries, we'll come back to it, we'll do some of the writing. So we start with my Edson. So this is Tomoe River paper number 7. Comes from the number 7 machine. Now, the fun part of this nib is that it's got a big juicy stub. It is a lot of line variation, very wet, very smooth. So this is the Edson, which is an extra smooth stub. First thing to notice is that I'm starting to cut the mess here, sorry about that, is that the line is very, very thick. Okay, it's not thin at all. You can tell that the ink stays at the top. Extra smooth. The flow is wet, soft, juicy. These are all adjectives. Thick. With just slight feedback. And I wouldn't call it, it's just a scribing noise. It lets you know you're writing with a fountain pen. And you'll see that that scribing noise will increase depending on the nib that we use. Okay? Now, this smooth, wet, soft, juicy, and thick line is to be compared to a line that is finer, that where the nib it kind of grabs onto the paper. It's kind of a muddy flow. It's almost you have the sensation that the flow of your writing is obstructed. Some of the papers also, they're so glossy they you can almost hear them squeak because of the glossy paper. Some other papers are kind of scratchy, toothy, got a lot of tooth, and coarse. as opposed to having that smooth, wet, light, a smooth, thick, wet line. You get a kind of a light, dry, and finer line. So those are kind of the major differences between Tomoe River and other paper. So that's the Edson. Now let's look at this is the Sailor, and I will let you just hear the scribing sound. So, typical Sailor sound. It's chalky but not squeaky, and you'll see the difference with some other paper. It's thick, wet, and it flows beautifully. Excuse me. Now, next, let's compare that to the Scribo fine nib. The Scribo is a little more tooth. But again, you see this fine nib that almost gives you a medium line. Why? Because it's wet, thick ink flow. So you can almost say that Tomoe River will exaggerate just slightly the thickness or the line width, if you will. And it will bring up all the ink. We'll soon see some of the shading and the sheening on that Sailor ink, the ink that's in that Sailor pen. Let's take another fine, just to, while we're on the fine. This is the Homo sapien. You can see that this is a thinner line, but as opposed to other papers, it's still very smooth. Just a hint of feedback. And even though it's a finer line, it's still very wet. That's the key. And the flow of your writing is unobstructed. You don't feel like you're writing in mud, okay? And I'll show you the paper where you do feel that. Then let's take a look at Leonardo. This is a Leonardo La Fenice. And it's a medium that almost writes like a broad. Thick, wet, juicy, medium nib. Hardly no feedback really to speak of, just a hint. Okay? And last but not least is my Pelikan. No test. I mean, you cannot test a pen without going through Pelikan or some juicy pen anyway. Now this is an uncontrollable gusher. It's soft, wet, but still hear a little bit of feedback. But the writing experience is just perfectly flowing. It's just a perfect feel. Okay? So those are the pens. Now, let's draw some conclusions as to what we see here. Let me just move up a little bit so you can get a bird's eye view. Let me just write some notes here that we can follow with. Where's my Homo sapiens? First of all, you can see how the ink sheens. It's not even dry yet. Look at the way it sheens. You can see this ink is in that sailor. You see it started out blue. Okay. You've got in the pelican, you got that Irish green that has some shading. Okay. Similarly, you see some shading in the Edson. Shading, by shading, we mean just lighter and darker shades of the same ink. Now, the characteristics of all of this writing, apart from all the smooth, thick, wet line, is that one, there is no feathering. Sorry, that's me. Okay? There is also very little, it does happen, but very little bleeding. So it doesn't penetrate. So little, oh, my pen has just run out of ink. Let me just take another one. So little, if any, bleeding. You'll see bleeding in some of the inks that don't behave, stubborn or problematic inks. But I would say to you, it's not even applicable. I really never see bleeding. Okay? Now, in terms of ghosting, that's where some of the criticism comes. Okay? People say, you could see the handwriting. But in this original Tomoe River, it's not bad, folks. It really isn't. But there is some ghosting, slight. And that's because the paper is ultra thin. I personally like that ghosting and the effect it has when you write. You kind of see in the background. It makes the paper crinkly. Okay, it gives it that softness. You can see now this is all written on, and it kind of takes a shape of its own, and it becomes softer. So the writing experience, I hope I was able to describe it, is heavenly. It's everything perfect. I mean, look, if you like dry, very thin lines, then this may not be the paper for you. If you absolutely detest slight ghosting, this is not the paper for you. But if you want a fluid, soft, smooth, with just the right amount of scribing or feedback, with a little bit more wetness in your ink, and the expressiveness or, expressive inks as well, Tomoe River paper is a must, folks. It's a must. And that's why I think I'm struggling, or I've struggled over the last 6 months, to find the ultimate alternative. And we'll get there, folks. So that is why I like this paper. Now what I propose is that we show you all of the notebooks we have and why they're being discarded, or why I think they're not an alternative to Tomoe River paper. Be right back. Okay, so we're back. I just wanted to show you, these are all the notebooks. Okay, you got what, eight packs of, you know, roughly 5 per section here. Different categories. I've got between 40 and 50 notebooks that I have, most of which I've reviewed since, you know, January the 1st, 2026, some of which I had reviewed in the past. And we're going to kind of divide all these notebooks into categories so that we could, you know, accelerate things. It'd be difficult for me to review each one. It would take me hours. But I think that I can, you know, summarize my findings by dividing these 40, 50 notebooks into categories, okay? And the categories are going to be the following. The first category is going to be what I would term kind of thick paper, glossy, and most of which are Japanese, in fact, okay? A very, very smooth surface, thick paper. Needless to say, all of these notebooks are fountain pen friendly, okay? Most of them have you know, the main qualities, i.e. they do not feather, they do not bleed, the ghosting is either non-existent or minimal. So we're not going to worry about notebooks that are, you know, are not in that category. So the first category, glossy, super glossy. And then we're going to look at notebooks that are notebooks that have texture. So a little bit coarse, a little bit rough. Then we're going to take a look at notebooks that I think are viable alternatives to Tomoe River paper number 7. And then we're going to go through them, and then eventually we will wind ourselves down, declare the top 3, and eventually declare the finalist. So these are the suspects. I'm going to clean all this up. I'll be right back, and we're going to start with the categories. Be right back. Okay, so we're back. We're going to start with the first category, which is the category of a paper that I would say, I would describe it as glossy, very glossy paper, smooth but extra smooth, with a coating on it, okay? And when it comes to that, I think the prime example of that type of a notebook or paper are the 2 classics, which often are considered to be amongst the best fountain pen friendly papers, which are the RHODIA notebook and the CLAIREFONTAINE. Let's start with the CLAIREFONTAINE, which I think is the glossier of the 2. And let me just get to my writing sample. Here it is. Now, what happens with this very glossy coated finish is that all the writing is not as expressive, it's not as intense. The lines are thinner. In fact, my Edson barely writes, okay? It's very light. I termed it bat flow, inconsistent, slippery feel. The sailor sings or squeaks, okay, as a much finer line. But it's fairly wet, and it flows a little bit better, I would say, than my Edson, which is supposed to be the opposite. My Leonardo writes like a fine, so again, much thicker. It's a much thicker nib, but a thin, very fine line. It has a sticky feel, but it's controlled, so it doesn't run away from you. The Homo sapiens, the Visconti, it's an extra fine line, barely writes. Some unusual feedback with this pen that normally writes fairly smooth and wet. The Scribo is squeaky and sticky. Little sheen, not the greatest sheen on that swatch. In terms of availability, of course, these notebooks are readily available. There's no feathering, there's no bleeding, and there's really no ghosting to speak of because it is a thicker 80 GSM paper. So that's Clairefontaine. Now, I don't like that slippery feel, the squeakiness. I don't like the writing experience of a Clairefontaine. But if you're looking for a very light, finer line, controlled writing, then Clairefontaine would do wonders. I just don't like the writing experience. So they're not going to be an alternative, that's for sure. RHODIA is a little bit better, I would say to you. It's an 80 GSM, so it's a thick paper. It has excellent availability and variety. The line width is thinner, inconsistent again. It feels too coated. The writing experience is not great, but it's much thicker, I would say to you, than Clairefontaine. The Pelican, I missed the Pelican here, but I can assure you that the Pelican on this would squeak. Pelican M1000 thin line, but not too much squeaking on the RHODIA. Sailor squeaked, not great, so it sings. The Visconti flow is awful. Skips, not good at all. You can feel kind of a scratchy, as if it's going into the paper. I had written with my Lotus Titan, which is a thicker, broad, juicy nib. It's okay. It's a thinner line, so it's controlled, but no juice or expressiveness. It doesn't give you that intensity. Scribo, okay feel, but again, lacks all expression. In terms of sheen, you hardly see any sheen. There is some bleeding, but no ghosting. You can see just slight bleeding with the thicker, wetter nibs. Ghosting, especially for a GSM, it shouldn't be. I think it's an highly overrated paper. No real ink, expressive performance. But it's a good everyday writer. It dries, the ink dries quickly, and it's very much available. So those are I would say to you that the two most known coated paper notebooks, Clairefontaine and RHODIA. Okay, so that probably be in their own category, if you will. So we'll now go to the next category, or a subcategory of glossy paper, if you will. Be right back. Okay, the next category I would say is the Japanese glossy paper. These are all the next several notebooks are all made in Japan. Let's start with Life. I think Life has several, and maybe even have other categories of Life notebooks. Let's start with this one. It is, first of all, it's a nice size. It's very thick paper, but it doesn't come in very thin. It doesn't come thicker. It does come in various sizes. So A5 is available, which is for me the go-to size. Now let me just show you here. The thickness, it's an 85 GSM. It's available, good size. Feels slippery, coated, similar to the other Life notebooks. They're all the same thing. I would say that all these three notebooks are slippery. They're coated. The line is a fine line. It's controlled. The flow is an okay flow with this Edson. The Pelican squeaks and sings, very chalky. And you can see the kind of the grid in the writing. You can see it here as well. Not too wet. It's a finer line. Homo sapiens, you're fighting with the paper. It's too light. It's too coated. The Leonardo, chalky and squeaky. The Sailor, squeaky and chalky, but not as bad as the Pelican M1000. The sheen overall is okay. There's no real feathering, bleeding, or ghosting. But overall, not a great writing experience. Noisy, coated, light line, sort of thick paper. I would say to you that I'm getting the same results for all three. If I'm not mistaken, let me just check, make sure there's no exceptions. I think that essentially tells the story. In fact, this one is even glossier. That's the margin. The Noble, again, very glossy. It kind of just slips, you know. Not fond of this paper at all. I would say to you to cut it short. This is the same thing goes for this other TSUBAME notebook. Very sticky. Control writing. There's even some feathering on this one. Squeaky feel. The availability is good. It's got a slight texture, a little more texture than some of the Life. A lot of sheen. No ghosting, or it's acceptable. No bleed through. Some feathering that I noticed on the Pelican. But again, very thick paper. Not a great writing experience. You don't have the softness, crinkly feel of a Tomoe River paper number 7 machine. Same thing I would say to you with this YU-SARI notebook. Just too, in my opinion, too glossy for me, for my taste. The paper is too thick, but there's no ghosting, just no bleeding, no feathering, but it squeaks all over the place. Dries quickly. It's 95 GSM, just lacks the character. Then we go to this per panip, the TSURU-TSURO. They have like 3 different categories. This is I believe the glossier of, I mean, you can almost see the shine in the paper. It's so glossy. Squeaks, ultra smooth, slippery, glassy, no feedback whatsoever. Not as expressive as TRP in terms of the sheen. Ghosting quite a bit for a 96 GSM paper, I think. You can see it. You even have some slight bleed through there. I say no bleed through, but I mean, look, I see dots everywhere, and for a 96 GSM, shouldn't be. So I don't like this paper, and it comes in a very thin notebook. I like them a little bit thicker. Same thing I would say to you in terms of glossy feel is this Logical Prime. These are all great fountain pen friendly notebooks. You can write with them, not a problem. I just don't like the it's a fairly thick paper. It's very noisy. It sings. The Waterman, no feel, too quiet. It just thinner lines. Okay, in terms of the sheen, there's no feathering, ghosting, or bleed through in this paper. It's an okay paper, but again, lacks the character, and it's a bit too thick for my taste. Then we go to campus paper in different, models and different formats, if you will. Smooth, coated paper, dry, finer line with the Edson, slightly sticky feel, no feedback. Hardly hear the feedback with the Sailor, and you should, because that nib really is expressive in terms of sound. Slightly squeaky. It's a little bit of a thicker line on campus than in the other notebooks we just seen. The scribble flows with a little bit of feedback, but Writer is very dry, so he gives you a fine, controlled line. The Leonardo, best of all, but feel and hear squeak and stickiness. Homo sapien, extra fine line, hardly feel the pen, controlled, fine, and dry, very dry line, as you can tell. The Pelican M1000, sticky and squeaky. The sheen is okay, no bleeding, no feathering, no ghosting. It's a thicker paper, so there shouldn't be, but again, don't like the writing experience. The same, I say, goes with this MNEMOSYNE Moorman notebook. Very, very coated paper. Fountain pen friendly, like all of these notebooks, frankly. Let me just get to my test here. The sheen is okay, not great, but it's okay. No bleeding, ghosting, or well, is there feathering? I don't think there's feathering either. Again, you could see it's an ultra smooth that causes a bad flow, even with the Edson, very inconsistent, bad writing experience. The Pelican squeaks, no real flow and expression. The Sailor, very obstructed flow, not great. Homo sapiens, very low flow, hard to get ink on paper, light flow. And the Lotus Titan, which is broad, strictly sticky, obstructed flow. Like RHODIA, highly overrated in my view. So there goes, those are all the coated, glossy Japanese offerings. And unfortunately, none of these glossy type of papers make it. Oh, one more. Sorry about that. One more to present, which is the MUJI. Now, the advantage of MUJI paper is that it's really cheap. So if you're willing to live with the glossiness of the paper, it's 80 GSM. It only comes in very thin notebooks like this. There is another version, which is with a spiral, which is a little thicker, but it's not the premium quality paper. It's the recycled, and it gives you basically the same results. Again, availability, yeah, thinner notebook, okay. The line width, not as thick as recycled. The recycled version feels like writing in mud. Coat results in restricts the flow. The feel is sticky, smooth. Pelican, thinner line, it squeaks. The Leonardo, sticky, squeaky, fine line, not fluid. Sailor, noisy, chalky, not smooth, flow, scratchy, and for some reason, my Sailor scratches on this paper. The Scribby, no flow, sticky and slow. It's okay sheen, lots of sheen, no feathering, bleeding or ghosting. I prefer the recycled version because it has a smoother flow. But there you have it. That's another. And you should avoid the MUJI paper made, I believe, outside of Japan. I think they make some paper in Indonesia, and it's just not as good. So there you have the glossy paper category. We'll be back with the next category. Okay, the next category I would say is the category of paper that has a little more tooth, has some texture, a little coarser, you can feel it. Let's start with CANOPUS Note. Now, this is a paper that it was touted to replace Cosmo Airlight, and I think they have very similar qualities. Of course, the Cosmo Airlight would not make my cut just because it's been discontinued. Now, you can probably still find Cosmo Airlight notebooks, but in terms of availability, it's limited. And of course, it was a good paper. I would never categorize it as an alternative to Tomoe River paper. It just writes and feels very differently. But having said that, so we can dismiss Cosmo Airlight just because it's not being made anymore, put that aside. But CANOPUS was meant to replace it. So let's go to my... Now, this is a 73 GSM paper, but it feels like 90. I mean, it's stiff, very... I just don't like these thick notebooks or thick paper. Availability is very good. It's a nice size. It's an alternative to Cosmo. The feel, smooth but not coated. Just a little bit of a feedback. You know, that's a big, smooth pen, the Jetson. So the line is a thick line, but not as thick as TRP. It's a little bit lighter in terms of ink expressiveness. The flow is excellent fluidity with just the right amount of feedback. The Pelican M1000, somewhat muddy or overly chalky flow, so it's a little bit restricted. The Sailor KOP, King of Pen, loud, chalky, scribing, lacks fluidity and smoothness on this paper because it is a little rougher. It's got texture. Homo sapiens lacks flow and fluidity. Okay sheen. Oh, it's got good sheen. Not over the top, but good sheen. No bleeding, feathering, or ghosting. Not a great fluid writing experience as one would get with with Tomoe River paper, obstructed with finer nibs. So you get an obstructed flow with finer nibs. So that doesn't make the cut either. The next one is the Midori. The Midori is certainly a viable alternative to a good paper. I'm not choosing it, and I'll explain to you why, but The thickness is 85 GSM. It comes in different formats, so it's a good paper. It's excellent quality. Fine, smooth with just right amount of texture. Okay, line width, medium line width. It's not overly thick. The flow, something impeding the flow on that Edson. The Pelican, quick drying, noisy, textured, chalky feel. Okay. Leonardo, medium writer, like a fine. It's a medium nib, but it writes like a fine. The Sailor KOP, loud, chalky feel, but good control, but no smooth fluidity. It's got texture, so you could feel, if you want that feedback feeling, you've got it here. The Titan, well, thinner line, it's a juicy broad, my Lotus Titan, and here you're getting a controlled, sandy, scratchy sensation. It's got excellent sheen. I mean, in terms of ink performance, it's excellent, one of the best. No feathering, no bleeding, no ghosting. It's just not a fun writing experience because of the texture, in my view. It's an excellent EDC, everyday product, but not a great writing experience. That's my view, so Midori doesn't make it either. Dandelion paper, this was a complete disaster between you and I. I didn't like it at all. There's no flow, very noisy, too much texture in my opinion. Not a fun writing experience at all. There's a slight feathering. The sheen is not great either. An extremely thick paper with no character, in my view. I wouldn't. Not for me, folks. It's not a Tomoe River replacement. Get back to this one in a second. Fabriano is a paper, I think, that's a fun paper, just because it's a little bit, thick. It has 85 GSM. But somehow it feels so much thinner, textured but smooth. The Pelican goes down. You feel the texture. You get, it's a sandy, sticky flow. Sailor brings out the KOP feedback, so it brings out the Sailor feedback, but the flow is slightly scratchy. Okay, so the feedback becomes a little too scratchy for my taste. The Leonardo, it's sandy flow. Really feel the feedback, but it's controlled. Okay, lacks the smoothness and fluidity of Tomoe River paper. There is no ghosting, no feathering, some bleed through. Okay, you can see some bleed through in the writing here. Some of the ghosting is there as well, but doesn't make the cut, folks. Not for me anyway. GRAPHILO paper. Okay, let's take a look at that. This is very thick, okay, very good availability as well. Slightly tactile but smooth, so it's got a little bit of coating, but it is a little more textured. Line width, it's a medium line, so it goes down a little bit thinner, my Edson does. The Pelican, nice feedback with smooth flow, medium wet line width, so it kind of dries quickly. Leonardo, fairly smooth experience, good flow, but it's not over the top. The Sailor brings out that nib, but with smoother feel. Okay, so the Sailor works out nicely. My Lotus Titan, thick, juicy, slight feedback, good flow. The Scribo, similar feel to the KOP, to the Sailor, but it's more controlled, smooth line and feedback. It just lacks the full fluidity of the Tomoe River paper. In terms of sheen, get quite a bit there. There's no feathering, bleeding, or ghosting. But, it just doesn't give you that fluid writing experience. Very thick paper. I think it comes in different formats, however. So that's GRAPHILO. Unfortunately, doesn't make my cut. Next is the second category of Perpanep paper. This is ZARA-ZARA, and this has very textured feel. Very textured. Okay, it's a thick 90 GSM. It gives you a nice availability in terms of size. The feel is textured, lots of feedback, even with the Edson. The flow is skipping, but thick line, okay? Pelican M1000, tactile feel, controlled flow. The Sailor, feel the paper texture, lacks fluidity, good for those who enjoy a lot of feedback. Lotus Titan, flow obstructed by the texture. The Leonardo, struggled but controlled flow. Okay Sheen, not great, not too much, no feathering, ghosting, or bleeding. So that's a ZARA. Again, if you like a very textured feedback, sort of a writing experience, it's something to look at. So those are my, that's my category for, a little more textured paper. We're going to put all those away and come back with the next category. Be right back. Okay, now we enter another category, and I don't have too many of those, but it's these are kind of in-betweens, if you know what I mean. This is what they call the B7 Bulky Natural at 75 GSM, and this one is the B7 Natural, but it's not bulky. I don't know, frankly, if there's a difference. Both of them you can get on Danica 58. One of the reasons why I've discarded these is that I'm not sure how available they will be in the long run. Okay, and both of them, when you write with them, they definitely, whereas those other Japanese coated papers, the inks come very thin, so everything is thinner. The broad looks like a medium, the medium looks like a fine, everything is drier, everything is thinner. It's a very controlled line with the Japanese, those other Japanese coated papers. So the pen doesn't run away from you. Whereas with Tomoe River, the flow is so smooth, it's so it's silky, not silky, but wet, that sometimes a Pelican M100 will write by itself. This is kind of an in-between sort of situation. You can see that it definitely has the thickness, but again, you run into the stickiness and and because it is coated, the stickiness and a muddy flow. It kind of, that coating obstructs the fluidity of the pens. And at one point, this one I write that it kind of, your muscles hurt when you write in this paper. You're struggling for that fluidity. Both of these notebooks are very good in terms of bleeding, in terms of ghosting, in terms of, they're 75 GSM, in terms of feathering, not an issue. They are fountain pen friendly, but like I said, maybe the lines are a little thicker on both these papers, but the coating is still obstructive in nature. This is the HEMLOCK and Oak. It's a 75 GSM. The reason why I like this is because when you pick it up, you say, wow, this really looks like a Tomoe River notebook, like a Wonderland 222 that we'll see. And it's got those nice squares like Obonichi. And you think, maybe we've got something here. But when you start to look at it, first of all, it's not a thin paper. It's a 75 GSM. The availability is good, but it's got smoothness with a little bit of texture. So the lines are not as thin, but again, you run into a kind of a funny situation where when you're dealing with a broad pen, the coating is obstructive. When you're dealing with a finer nib, like a fine or even a medium, then you can feel the texture. So this is what I mentioned here. This is a paper that to the touch feels really smooth, but has texture when writing to the point where it's obstructive and the fluidity is just not there. It's too bad. It's a really nice notebook. It opens up and, lays flat. It does remind me a lot of Obonichi, but the thickness and the coating and that somehow it's got that sandy texture just doesn't make the cut for me. So these three notebooks as well didn't make it, folks. We'll be back with the next category. Okay, the next category, I would say that this is a category that it's just very good-looking notebooks. They've got hardcovers, very well bound. You've got, the elastic band, and, good, solid notebooks. But most of them have, their own writing quirks, if you will. This is Endless Recorder. This is the, Regalia paper that everybody was going crazy over. It's 80 GSM, and I just don't like it. First of all, take a look at the sheen. There's no expression there at all. The paper has a textured feel. It's an 80 GSM. But the Edson writes very thick, smooth, excellent lines. Expressive ink performance when you write with it, but for some reason, not giving me any expression on my swatch. The Sailor gives me quite a bit of expression there. Wet, thick lines with Sailor sound, not squeaky. Scribo, nice scribing sound. Again, very wet, thick and smooth. The Leonardo, the medium, thick, wet, medium line, slight feedback, very smooth. The Pelican M1000, very broad, wet, smooth line, but with some texture, which provides control. The Homo sapiens, a little bit obstructed. That's that finer nib. Digs into the paper, but still pretty wet and thick for a fine. So it's thick, wet, expressive with a controlled feel. Slight feathering on the swatch. Also bleeds with some ghosting. That's the problem with this paper. It bleeds. If it's going to bleed for an 80 GSM, look, take a look at it. It bleeds everywhere. For an 80 GSM, doesn't make the cut. Too bad. Nice notebook. That's the Recorder. Here's the LEUCHTTURM 1917. I always find this is another extremely overrated notebook company. They had to come out with the 120 GSM because all the other ones, I would say to you, are not. Some of them are not even fountain pen friendly. But this thing is too thick. I mean, don't like the experience, but let's take a look at how it writes. 120 GSM, extremely thick, glossy, lacks character. The Edson, smooth, thick, dry feel. The Sailor, you can hear the Sailor nib. It's a little squeaky but smooth, thick and wet. Scribo, Sailor-like feel, and the line is wet, fairly thick and smooth. The Leonardo, medium, it's smooth, thick, less thick than the TRP, than Tomoe River paper. It's controlled. It's okay wetness. Pelican, it's a controlled but thick and wet, smooth line. Homo sapiens, fine nib, obstructed flow, not as smooth, little scratchy. So it's a sheen is okay. You can see some sheen, glossy without squeaks. So it feels quiet, but there's no squeaks. Very controlled line and wetness, no bleeding, ghosting, or feathering. Okay, controlled, but not exciting writing experience. It's just that paper. It doesn't give me that soft, crinkly feel. It's a thick, almost like cardboard. Don't like it. So that's the next one. Next one is KLEMPEN. Very, really sharp-looking notebooks. I've got several. They were sent to me by a viewer. I think I did the swatching in the back, if I'm not mistaken, or did I do it in the front? Forget. Let me just see. Yeah, here it is. Beautiful notebook, smooth coated paper, availability very good, slight feathering, okay? Not great with my Edson. The flow, not great, not great downstrokes, inconsistent. Sailor goes on thick with no Sailor feedback, but no feathering. Leonard, medium, does very well, just right for this paper. So it's a medium, it likes medium nibs. Scribo, okay, although I feel a little more friction, stopping flow, and there's a little bit of feathering there. Homo sapiens also works fine, smooth flow, slight feathering. So that's nice look, thick paper, not comparable to Tomoe River paper, but a good all-around notebook, no ink sheen at all, and no ink performance whatsoever, no bleeding, no ghosting, slight sometimes feathering on the paper. So that's the the KLEMPEN, but it's just not the same. Doesn't make the cut. This is a really nice book. This is DINGBAT. I really like the way it writes. It's just very thick, unexciting, and it's just not an exciting writing experience. Where did I do my swatch here? Here it is. DINGBAT. Okay, paper is very thick and glossy. The Edson goes on fairly thick, extra smooth, no feedback, a little dry. The Sailor, nice scribing sound, no squeaks. Thick, wet line, very nice. Scribble, thick, smooth, wet, fine line, not scratchy, finer line. It's finer than TRP. The Leonard medium, thinner line, thinner than the Tomoe River paper. Little feedback, still smooth, and feels Sailor-like. Homo sapien, smooth, finer line, very dry, however. The Pelican M1000, not a gusher, controlled, broad line, very nice. The sheen is okay on this paper, not as nice as TRP. No feathering, bleeding, little bit, little to no ghosting, okay? Slight thinner line and a little drier than Tomoe River paper. It's a thick paper, does not have that soft, crinkly feel. But a good performing notebook, I find. I use it quite often, but not to get my fountain pen therapy. It's just to really take down some notes. Actually, I follow all my purchases with this notebook. So there you have good-looking notebooks, but that unfortunately are not Tomoe River alternatives, not in my view, in any event. So that's it for the all those notebooks that I've discarded and explained to you why. Now we're going to take a look at the notebooks that I think are my finalists. I will be right back. Okay, next. These kind of came close, but no cigar. Bank paper. This is the Yamamoto bank paper. Was really nice. I mean, it is slippery and coated, but it's a nice paper. It's a little bit thinner, but bank paper, from what I understand, is no longer being made. So there again, just for that reason, I would not choose it. It is a little bit thicker, much thicker than the Tomoe River. The no squeaking, not an alternative. Stop making ink, thick lines for fine nib. Some squeaking on the Sailor. So there was some profile, same profile as the coated papers, but it is a little bit less. It's not rough. So it's a kind of an in-between between what's very nice about Tomoe River and the coated papers. But again, no longer being made. Then you have Edit, which was touted to be, Tomoe River replacement. It's 52 GSM. You look at it, you feel it, you say, wow. But then when you look at it, it too is a very coated paper. So this is a very coated thin paper as opposed to some of the other Japanese pens. And again, the turnoff is that it's sticky. They're very, very sticky and squeaky. A much thinner line, doesn't have that fluidity. So Edit doesn't make the cut. Idea, again, this notebook was very thin, okay, and it feels a little bit more like Tomoe River, a little more like Sanson, and we'll take a look at Sanson in a minute. Problem with this is that I found that it was bleeding, and the availability of a simple notebook or freestyle and not an agenda with all kinds of calendars and stuff, this Idea is very thin, and that doesn't do the trick for me. It's got to be a thicker notebook, A5 sized. So this Idea from KOKUYO doesn't make the cut, although 52 GSM came close. I think the one that comes closest but doesn't make the cut is IROFUL. IROFUL, again, very nice, thinner paper, brings out the inks really nice, but too thick for my liking. It's a coated line, too smooth, no feedback. Scribo is good feeling, the scribing sound. Ink is really expressive, but feels a little sandy. So you've got a situation where, on the one hand, it's squeaky with some pens and sandy with others. And I got to tell you, it's a mixed baggage, although it really brings out the ink. Take a look at that. So IROFUL is good for inks, but extremely expressive with inks, but feels too sandy, obstructs writing experience. Waterman Edson feels a little slippery with some sandy spots. Thicker paper, availability is great. Again, it comes in very small packages, so to speak. So IROFUL, unfortunately, doesn't make the finalist series. So there you have it. I think we've completed those that have been completely cut off. What's next, I think, are my finalists. And then we'll dwindle it down and we'll come down to my favorite. So be right back. Okay, we're back. Now, for the first alternative to the original number 7 Tomoe River paper, I guess would have to be the Tomoe River paper with the number 9 machine. Now, I got to tell you, I am sure that I have notebooks that probably have that Tomoe River number 9 paper. And I'm not sure which ones they are, but I am sure about one particular product that is the number 9 machine. Let me go to my overhead camera so we can compare it. So this is my original Tomoe River. See how soft it is. It's crinkly, but, you know, it's just so soft. Okay. This one here, it says Tomogawa, but this is the number 9 machine. And the paper is stiffer. It feels thicker. It's not as soft as the Tomoe River paper. It just even sounds different, you know. It just doesn't feel the same. Feels thicker, feels stiffer. So let's just see how it writes. Okay, we'll do the swatching, we'll do the same. Okay, we're back with some of the tools. Let's open up this Sheen ink. Let's just see how it feels right off the bat. Yeah, doesn't feel soft. It's just as smooth, and the ink is staying at the top, but there's just that little bit of texture, additional texture, that I don't feel is present in the original Tomoe River. Now, let's do the writing. Put that aside. Let me just... Here we go. Okay. Let's start with the Edson. So this is the Tomoe River. You can tell right away. I mean, did you see that? It's just, it didn't write almost. Paper. This is number 9. It's inconsistent. So with the Edson, you see the inconsistency there? Edson, inconsistent. Flow. Much thinner. Missing fluidity. You know, thin line, thick line. It doesn't go on the same way as this Edson. Do you see the difference? Thick line, smooth, fluid, takes on all the ink. Let me just see what it does with the Sailor. It's not the typical sailor. It's kind of rough, textured, finer line, completely different. It's kind of a weird sounding sailor. Doesn't give you that nice sailor sound. Let's do the scribble, which is a little toothier nib. Yeah, almost feels sandy feel. Oh, you hear that? It's just, there's no fluidity, folks. I'm going to stop there. Ah, awful. So, does it have sheen on that ink? Probably. If I let that dry, you'll see all the sheen. But there's no comparison to the juicy, wet, smooth line that you get on the number 7 machine. So we can tell you that whatever has number 9, and it's difficult in all my notebooks to know which one does, but I can tell, okay? So we can forget about number 9. Now, I have, the next one, of course, is Sanson. So let me just back up here. In terms of Sanson products, the question becomes, there's the old Sanson and the new Sanson, okay? Now, I was fortunate enough to buy several Obonichis from the past that go from, 19. I even have 220, but I don't have it here. I have 20 in the small E6. So I have the 219 with the original Tomoe River. Then 220, 221, that may have the first Sanson. And the 23 had the big botched Sanson that nobody liked. And then, of course, I have the new product that came out this year, 2026 agenda, with the new and improved Sanson. So we'll take a look at that in a second. But in terms of Sanson paper, I do have a notebook or a notepad. Where is it? Let me just get it for you. Here it is. Now, is this the new or the old? I can tell you that the Sanson paper is a little stiffer, but less than the number 9 machine, in my view. This, I think, is the older Sanson. Doesn't have that crinkly feel, a little stiffer. But let's do some swatching and writing, and we'll be able to tell right away if it has the same properties as the original. Whoa, can tell right away. Very, very sticky. Very sticky. And the new Sanson was touted to be a faster drying ink, therefore more penetration right off the top. It doesn't stay afloat at the top. I can tell it's very sticky. So let's put that aside. Take my Edson. Much better than the number 9. I'm going to put Sanson Old. But take a look at the line. The smooth, no feedback. Consistent. But thinner line width. The ink comes down lighter, more controlled. Sticky. feel. Even with the setsen. Okay? Let me go with the sailor. Sandy. Very thin. See how thin? So much thinner. The line is so much thinner, folks. Look at the difference between, let me just, here, between that and this. Let's look at the scribble. I say toothy, fine, medium line, wet, thick ink flow. This is scribble. Thin, dry, sandy, sticky, not fluid. I'm struggling to write. It's so sticky. So we can stop here. I think we can stop. Let me just see if it squeaks. The squeaking would probably come out with my Pelican. I doubt it squeaks, but well, didn't even write. Thin, sticky, clay-like. Awful feeling, folks. No good. So that's the old. Now, did it bring out the inks? Yes. Was it less ghosting? Perhaps. But, not that much less. There's no bleeding? Yes. No feathering? Yeah. But not the same feeling. Completely different. So that's the old Sanson. Now, let's see what the new Sanson feels like. Now, the new Sanson, this is my here we go. This is my Albanici 2026 that I'm using on a daily basis at the office. And it's the cousin, and it's supposed to be new and improved. I enjoy writing on this pad, on this notebook. I don't know if it's going to give me the same, smooth flow as the old Tomoe River, but we shall see. Certainly, the paper is softer, less rigid, less stiff. It does give you that kind of crinkly feel. It's like in between. It's not as nice as the old number 7 and not as bad as the number 9 or the Sanson, but we shall see in terms of actually writing. Again, the flow is very nice. Not as good as number 7, but much better than number 9 and not as sticky as Sanson, or the old Sanson, I should say. So there is an improvement there. Now, let me see in terms of writing. This is the Tomoe River. Oh, you can tell the difference right away. Tomoe River paper. I got to put this because you'll be able to see it right away. Look how thick it is. New Sanson. Now we're talking. Now we're talking Tomoe River. Now we're talking Tomoe River, number 7. So smooth, thick, fluid, not sticky, not sandy. You see how this, oh, you missed it all. Sorry about that. Look how thick it is. Just smooth. Sorry, folks. Let me just try to get it so that you could see it. See how thick it is? Now we're talking. Now we're talking. That's with the Edson. Okay, that's with the Edson. Look how thick it is as compared to, where's it? The old. As compared to this. You see how thick that is and how thin that is? Compare the comparison. Let's do the Sailor. See if it sings, if it's sandy. Typical Sailor sound. That's nice. Thick, wet, fluid. Just like the original. Let me tell you, very nice. Let's test out the Scribo. Yeah. Little more texture, but not much. Just like the original. It came down, I have here, to the fine, medium line, wet, thick ink flow. That's what I'm getting here. In terms of my Leonardo Le Fenice, on the original I have thick, wet, juicy, medium line, no feedback. Let's check Leonardo. No feedback. Wet, juicy, thick medium line. Very nice. Very nice, folks. So, I mean, let's even go further. Let's test my my Pelican. Pelican should give me this uncontrollable flow and thick. Little more control here. Not gusher. Thick, but not a gusher, like on the original. So that's a little bit different. And finally, with my Homo sapiens, I should have a smooth, fine, but wet line. Oh, it's got no more ink. Be right back. Okay. I just inked this, so it might be a little, but I think we'll get a good idea. Yes, folks, we get a fine, wet, thick line. Not scratchy. Smooth. So exactly what I'm getting with the original. Now, in terms of sheen, it's drying up. You can see it's taking a long time to dry, so that's similar characteristic. No bleed through. Got that ghosting. There's no feathering. You got the typical ghosting, maybe even a little more actually than on the original Tomoe River paper. It hasn't dried up yet, but very nice. I got to tell you, the Sanson, new improved, it's new and improved. So let's keep that one in mind as a possible alternative. Certainly it served me well so far at the office with this. That's when I used this notebook. So we've dealt with Sanson. Let's look at another alternative. Now we're back. This is a particular notebook that just came out on Danica 58. Danica refers to it as an alternative to Tomoe River. I haven't been able to get a name for this paper. I don't know what paper is being used. It's certainly as soft as Tomoe River. It's as thin as Tomoe River. It does not have the same softness or the same softness to the paper, more like Sanson than or that new improved Sanson. When I did a swatching, and the availability is uncertain. There's a no name, so I don't know if this is going to still be around next year, for example. Writes very similar to Tomoe River paper, extra smooth, however. Line width very thick and wet. Pelican M1000 thick, smooth, out of control, just like TRP. The Leonardo, same, thick, out of control smoothness, wet line. Homo sapiens, same thing. Flow is Tomoe River-like. The Sailor, it's thick, wet, with the right Sailor feedback. Again, all the right things. No squeaky, slightly chalky. That's the way it should sound. Excellent sheen. Typical ghosting. When you look at the ghosting, except that you see some bleeding right there. Paper feels less sturdy and not the same quality as Tomoe River. And when you look at previous writing here, you can tell that it's a little more ghosting. There's some bleeding. It's almost as if this paper is thinner for some reason. It doesn't have the same quality as Tomoe River paper. But writes very similar. That's why I think I'm going to use this notebook for all kinds of things. And the performance of the inks are very similar as well. So this is Danica 58. I call it Tomoe River paper alternative for lack of a... I've written to Danica to ask for a name and I didn't get an answer. So at the end of the day, it's an alternative in terms of quality, but is it going to make my final choice? I don't think so, just because of the availability issue. Okay, so that's another, but it's still an alternative to take a look at. Next. This is, I bought this on, you can find it on Taobao and I think even AliExpress. It's called Bashwan Tomoe River paper. Now, is Bashwan just Tomoe River paper? Is it Chinese Tomoe River paper? I don't know why Tomoe River paper would be Chinese. It's either Tomoe River or it isn't. Is it like an imitation? I'm not sure. Sure feels nice and light. It's 52 GSM. Let's take a look at the writing sample I have for you. Availability, not sure what this paper is. Okay. Thin like Tomoe River paper, feels a lot like Sanson. Smooth, the new Sanson. Smooth, thick, faster drying line with the Edson. You can tell it's much lighter than the Sailor KOP. Sailor feedback, no squeaking, thick line. The Leonardo slightly sticky but smooth, thick line. Scribble, feel and heard the feedback, flow slightly obstructed by the feedback. Now we're getting into a little bit of difficulty. The Homo sapiens, nice, smooth, thick, fine, but feedback is noticeable, affecting flow. Not great sheen. Take a look at the sheen. There's none. Just a little bit on the outside. Not great sheen, inconsistent bleeding and ghosting. I saw it, you see it in here. It bleeds through. No feathering, however. Not sure what you have here. So it's nice and thin, feels like Tomoe River. I think this is probably old Sanson with a little more coat on it, and not readily available, because I'm not sure that this mark will be available tomorrow. Biomark, Park Studio, Chinese, the way it is. It's come and go. It's not a consistent, available, reliable source like Obonichi, for example. So there you have it. But feels like Tomoe River. What else have I got for you? Okay, this is a reliable source. This notebook comes from Sterling Inks, and it's a paper by the name of Koji paper. Now, I like this paper. I really do. Let me show you the testing. Okay, so what do we got? It's 52 GSM, feels soft, like Tomoe River. Availability good with Sterling ink. It comes in all kinds of sizes. I even have it, as a matter of fact, not too far. Where is it? Here it is. I bought it in this much lined version, but much thicker. So you can get it in a thinner, or this size. I think that has over like 500 pages. This is like 200, 300s. Okay, so it's good. Good sizes. Feel, there is some kind of coating which interferes with consistency of flow. But it's not textured, so it's just maybe a little sticky. Flow slippery with inconsistent flow. Line width just a little bit less than Tomoe River. The Pelican, I feel feedback almost squeaking, close to the other coated Japanese papers. Leonardo M, feel the coating, close to a squeak. The Sailor, chalky, squeaky, not equivalent to Tomoe River. The sheen is good, writes like a coated Tomoe River paper, may explain why less ghosting, okay? Thinner line width, no bleeding, feels less quality in the hands. So it's thin and feels like Tomoe River, but not the same thing. Sterling ink, but it is a finalist. Next, well, this is Stalogy. Stalogy has always been, in my view, an alternative to Tomoe River, but there are big differences. First of all, in terms of availability, it is very much available. You can get it even on Amazon, as a matter of fact. Do I have a swatching of this? I should. Where is it? Just bear with me. Actually, I didn't do a swatch, so we'll do it together. Just because I know how this paper feels. Stalogy. So availability is excellent. It's very good. Smooth with some texture. The line width thick, a little drier, L, then TRP7. Even with that thick Edson, let's see what Sailor does. Yeah. Sailor feedback. Thick and wet. So that's very similar. Scribble. Here's where we get into trouble. Sandy. Little scratchy. Just because this paper just has a tiny bit more texture than Tomoe River. Let's see what the medium does. Yeah. You can feel the texture. But it's, you know, both of them are thick and wet. And the flow is good. So it's not sticky or muddy or clay-like, but a little scratchier. Let's check with the Pelican. Yeah, it's a gusher. Oh, a little squeaky. Just a bit. But reacts really nicely, and then with the Homo sapien, we should have a thick, fine line. No, it's sticky. Doesn't give me the same smooth flow. Now, less sheen, you can tell. And we also know that this paper doesn't bring out the inks the way the rest do. Does it feather? No. Some ghosting. Slight bleeding. Slight. No ghosting. And no feathering, I should say. And similar ghosting. Similar to Tomoe River, as you can see there. Maybe a little more. But more than TRP 7. Because they're readily available and cheaper than expensive Tomoe River paper, this may be a fun alternative, but you're not going to get the same play on the inks. So you have to sacrifice a little bit of ink performance, but it's still a viable alternative. There you have it. Is it my winner? We shall see. We shall see. Next. Now, I have here my Wonderland notebook. Okay, these are Wonderland 222 notebooks. They used to have on their website even some of the old stock. This is the new stock, and I've been using it to do my pen reviews. And you'll see here that I've done a sampling of it. It is Tomoe River paper, but I've got a feeling that it's the Sanson. Okay, let's take a look at it. Thickness 52 GSM, availability excellent. They have good sizes. They even have smaller A6 size. Line width much thinner than the Tomoe River paper, similar to Koji. Okay, feel coating interferes with consistency of flow. The flow thinner, feels like Koji, slippery and inconsistent. Sailor KOP, a skipping flow, not typical KOP feel. Homo sapiens feels better than the KOP, but feels slippery, like not penetrating the paper. Okay, Leonardo M, perhaps the best feel of all, nice and smooth and fluid. Good sheen, as you can see. No bleeding, less ghosting because of the coating, we've got a feeling. Feels and writes like a coated thin Tomoe River paper. Excellent paper quality, no feathering. Sanson feel in paper, not as soft as Tomoe River number 7. You can hear the difference. So I got a feeling they're using the Sanson paper. Now, I'm not even sure that this is the new Sanson paper, because when I compare it to Obonichi, it doesn't have the same qualities. The Obonichi 2026. So it's somewhere in between, but still a good alternative. It's soft, but you can tell that the page is a lot stiffer and not as soft like Tomoe River. Wonderland 222. There you have it. Stay tuned for the next one. Okay, next alternative I have for you is a Chinese product by the name of Kimbor. Now this paper is a mystery. I don't know if it's Tomoe River or just a completely different paper. Now you got to be careful. They sell the Kimbor notebooks, A6 and A5. This paper is got nothing to do with the paper that's in this. These are kind of yearly Obonichi lookalikes, okay? So stay away from this one. I'm not even going to bother. It bleeds, it feathers. It's not the same quality paper that you find in the Obonichi clones. So we'll put that one aside. I'm not going to waste time with it. Just buyer beware. It's not this product that I'm dealing with. This one here, this is this year's. I've been using this as my kind of agenda for my weekly recaps, where I plan and I script my videos. Okay, as you could see, I presented at the beginning of the year. It is a Obonichi like lookalike with, every month it's a daily. It is daily stamped, so you're stuck with the day. It's not a freestyle sort of a situation. A paper feels very much like Tomoe River paper. In fact, it's somewhere in between the old and the new improved Sanson. But let's see how it writes. So okay, we're going to do a swatching. Okay, so let's just write with it. I've been enjoying this because I use it, like I said, regularly. Okay, let's do first the swatch, just to see how it feels. Yeah, little bit less smooth than the original Tomoe River, but very similar to Sanson. Let's write with it. So this is Kimbor Hobonichi. You understand what I mean by that. I can tell you right away that this Edson feels great. So the Edson feels smooth, thick, good flow, very similar to TRP number 7. Very nice. Maybe a little lighter, and just lighter, it means it's just drying up a little bit quicker than Tomoe River. Let's take a look at Sailor. Yeah, it's got the Sailor noise. Thick, wet, juicy. Yeah, very similar. The scribble, this is usually where it gets into trouble. It becomes sandy if it's not the same. No, smooth. Just a little more feedback than the sailor. The way it should be. Just got a little bit of tooth. A little thinner line width than the original Tomoe River paper, I would say to you. Just slightly thinner. Let me do the Leonardo. Oh yeah. Smooth, thick, wet. Line. Very similar to Tomoe River paper number 7. Yes, sir. Overall, so far so good. Let's do Pelican. If it squeaks, we're in trouble. Gusher, but controlled. It's got a little more resistance than TRP 7. And on the TRP, I cannot control the pen. It's just right by itself. Last but not least, let's just see how this... The Homo sapien should be fine, wet, smooth line. A little bit drier, but smooth and wet. And thick for a fine line, but just slightly drier than the Tomoe River TRP number 7, just slight. Now, in terms of sheen, a little less sheen, right, folks? What do you say? I think so. Less sheen, but it hasn't quite finished drying, but you know what? I think when that dries, it'll probably give just as much, but it doesn't give me the... No, there's less sheen. Does it feather? No feathering. Does it give me any bleed through? I doubt it. No bleed through. I mean, I did press here because but similar ghosting, I think. No bleed, no bleeding. Ghosting equivalent to TRP 7. Overall, slightly thinner writing experience all around. But the advantage of that is that you have control. So that's what I've put. You have control over the, unlike sometimes the ink on a Tomoe River. Let me just, because the ink hasn't quite, here we go. Okay. Everything is juicier, thicker, darker, smoother, and uncontrollable fluidity on the Tomoe River. This one's a little more controlled. Just a little more controlled on this one. I think very similar to the new and improved Obonichi, if you ask me. So, good alternative. Is it the winner? We shall see. So this is the Kinbor Obonichi clone, if you will. I'm not going to close it because it's still wet. Be right back with the next contender. Okay, so the last contender is Krenna paper. Now, how readily available will this paper be in the future? I'm not sure. If you've seen my reviews, I showed you this kind of a paper sampler. There are several types of Krenna paper that are slightly different, different thickness as well. Some are 52, some are 50, some are 68, some are 70 GSM. So there is different type of paper, but the one that I think is the one that I was able to find, and that I think is a viable alternative, is the one that comes in this diary format. Okay, and it's diary with a free. It looks like kind of an Obonichi Kinbor idea, but with no dates. In other words, and I've been using this since I bought it, almost on a daily basis. As you can see, it has the same Obonichi gridding, sort of, graph, but it has a freestyle on the top. You can add dates, you can add subject matters, headings, but you're not stuck with a date. And I want to do a swatch and a sampling live on this Krenna paper. So let me just get clean that out. And let's see how smooth it is, or lack thereof. Oh, let me tell you, very close to Tomoe River number 7. Very close to Tomoe River number 7. So, this is the Krenna diary. Can you see that, folks? Oh, no, you can't. Thick and dark it is. Krenna diary, so it's a diary format. This is the Edson. It's thick, dark, wet, ultra smooth, stub. Very similar to Tomoe River paper number 7. Going to have to compare it to that new Sanson. So far, so good. Let's look at Sailor. My conclusion is just as thick, wet, flow, smooth, but less of that Sailor-like feedback. Just slightly less. It's not as noisy, if you know what I mean. And the noise that comes out of a Sailor nib is what makes that nib. Let's check out Scribo to see if it's sticky, or smooth. Yeah, perfect. Just a tiny bit of feedback. Just because the nib has some tooth. maybe, yeah, very similar. We'll compare it later, but very similar. Leonardo. Yeah, very similar. Maybe just a little less thick than Tomoe River Paper 7. Writes like a real medium here. On the Tomoe River, it borders broad. Let's do Pelican before we do the Homo sapien. It's a gusher with control. So less fluidity than the Tomoe River Paper 7, which is a good thing with the M1000 because on the Tomoe River Paper, it becomes uncontrollable, as I mentioned. Homo sapien. Oh, yeah. The way this nib should write. Fluid, smooth, wet, and fluid, smooth, wet, and thick. Fine line. Very nice. Wow, that comes really close. Sheen? Less sheen, I would say to you. Is there no bleeding? No feathering. Ghosting. Equivalent to Tomoe River Paper. I would say, as a final conclusion, this is Tomoe River Paper number 7 with a slightly finer line on every pen. Very nice. Very, very nice. Krenna Diary. Definitely an alternative. Is it the winner? We shall see. We shall see. There you have it, folks. That's the Krenna Diary. Be right back. Okay, so after all of that, sorry about the long video, but there's really no way to avoid it. I have my notes here. I think you saw my finalists at the end there. My finalists are, and not necessarily in their order, okay, of preference, but they are the Stalogy, the new Tomoe River Sanson Obonichi, the Chinese Obonichi Kimbor, the Sterling Ink Koji paper I could live with just because they offer a lot of variety. Wonderland 222, I suspect that they will use that new and improved Sanson paper. If it's not the one that I have, it's certainly going to be in the mix. They're readily available. And last but not least, Krenna notebooks. Okay, that diary version I have. Now, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 alternatives, if you will. Okay, finalists. From those 6, here are my top 4. Or top 3, I should say. The fourth one is the original. okay? I have the Kimbor Obonichi right here. I have the Obonichi, the true Obonichi, with the new Sanson here. And I have the Krena here. Now, here's my thinking. These are going to be my 3 go-to, and they have been, in fact, notebooks from now on, if I can get Krena next year. I know I'm going to get Obonichi. Unless they go out of business, you know they'll be there. Now, the advantage with Obonichi is they offer all kinds of alternatives, okay? They offer the A size 5, they offer the A6. You can buy this in the first 6 months, then the next 6 months if you wish. They have the weeks version of it as well. You can also buy, and I have it in this freestyle versions, okay? You can have, freestyle Obonichi notebooks with no dates, no nothing, okay? You can get them in, blank or lined versions. You even have a free, what do they call it? Free day. Do I have one here? Not sure if I have one here. No, I don't. But it's an agenda type, but free day. In other words, there's no pre-inscribed dates. You can add the dates as you go along. So that's the advantage of Obonichi. Except they're very expensive. Very expensive. Kimbor, you can get it in the A6 size, or you can get it in the A5 size. You also have in the Weeks version, but I'm not sure that the Weeks version has the same type of paper as this one, but the A6 and the A5 do. Much cheaper. Now, will they be around next year? I'm not sure. You know the way it is with Chinese. Unfortunately, you don't know where they come from. You know very little about, the outfit that makes them. And, like some of our pens, they're there 1 year and they're not there another year. So if they are available, I can assure you they will be purchased by me. So far, it's 2 years in a row, so it looks good. Krena, same thing. Will they be around? Will they make this particular notebook with this particular paper next year? I know I've bought a bunch of Kimbor, I bought a bunch of Krena, and I know that Obonichi will be around. Now, so those are my top 3. Which one is my favorite when everything is said and done? Guys, you might be surprised. Because Obonichi is so expensive, I would go with the Krena. I think that this product is the closest thing that comes to Tomoe River paper number 7. In terms of feel, in terms of performance, in terms of everything, I just adore this notebook. It doesn't have pre-inscribed dates. It gives me just a slight thinner control line, which is not a bad thing at the end of the day. Now, if I'm looking for a out-of-the-world writing experience, I just want to kind of get lost in my handwriting, and I would go with the Tomoe River paper number 7 machine. There's nothing like it, folks. There really isn't. But if I want something for everyday use, number 1, Krena, number 2, Obonichi, and number 3, Kimbor. Those are my finalists, folks. There you have it. Krena. Great product, folks. I haven't seen it on AliExpress. I've only seen it on Taobao. You got to learn how to use Taobao, folks. And I know some of you don't have access. Maybe there's... And I'm going to keep looking. But I have one... Remember Inkforge? Inkforge Inks. I'm in contact with him. The owner of this outfit said that he's trying to see whether or not he can start distributing Krena notebooks. Wouldn't that be great? We'd have somebody local. I think he's U.S. I'm not sure, US or Canada, but someone in the Western world with a normal kind of a website or ordering process, you don't have to go through Taobao, with the language issues, etc. I've also asked Danica58. I said to them, you guys should get Crenna. I haven't gotten a response, but maybe they will. Maybe they will. Because this Crenna paper is outstanding. And I wouldn't be surprised if they can get sourced that maybe Sterling will use it. I'm going to write to Sterling and say to them, you should seriously consider Crenna paper and see what they tell me. But there you have it, folks. The ultimate alternative to Tomoe River number 7 machine paper, in my view, is Crenna Diary Notebook. Stay tuned, folks, for my next video. If you haven't subscribed, please do. And enjoy your notebooks and enjoy your alternatives to Tomoe River paper. And folks, I know some of you will say, I don't like Tomoe River paper. I know I don't like it. It's ghosting and all the rest of it. But if you want a magical writing experience, you have to write on Tomoe River paper. Ciao, folks.